What's up, guys? Welcome to the Mad Chatter. I got a guest, Amara, on,
Hey.
and she's going to share her story with us and help gain things from her perspective. So I know a lot of people, we talked about the sort of stuff going on in the world, and we're curious on like how to handle situations and stuff. So hopefully we can learn how to be respectful to one another. And I'm just super interested to get into the psychology, the philosophy of everything. So.
Alrighty.
So yeah, I got a list of questions here. So when did you first feel like you were in the wrong body, if that's how you would put it?
I definitely think that's a good way to put it. Really, the earliest I can remember is probably about 12, 13. You know, you really start coming into yourself, and I can't really describe it as feeling wrong. Um, I would see it more as like I started developing a lot of body envy around that time. You know, like I would be watching a movie or something, and like I like action movies, you know, as a dumb kid and everything, but like, and there'd always be like the hot girl or something, and it's like, wow, she's really pretty, but it wasn't that normal like, oh, she's hot. It was the,
Mm-hmm.
why can't I look like that?
Yeah. So
Like that's
you're envious of the
yes,
feeling.
yes, like envy versus attraction.
Yeah.
Um, and I just assumed that was a normal thing. I've always considered myself like a naturally curious person. And so I would often wonder to myself, I'd be like, I wonder what it's like to live, you know, like as a woman versus a man, like what the experiences are. Um, and, you know, things like that. And I thought that was just natural curiosity that everyone had. And I don't know, as I got older, I realized that most people never once think about living as the other gender.
Yeah.
Like they are absolutely, it's just never crossed their mind. Just like, I mean,
So I'm actually
can't be that
super
different.
super curious. Like, I'll be I'll be going so deep in my head because
Mm-hmm.
you got this judgment, the judgment of society that's
Mm-hmm.
always in the back of your head about what's acceptable and what's appropriate. So I think that, like, at least subconsciously speaking, that we're beat down by this sort of stuff. So let's say I'm thinking about me being gay or something,
Mm-hmm.
right? I don't want to be gay because of like this beaten self judgment that I like kind of learned from being raised and stuff. I'm not saying that I feel attracted to men or anything, uh, but it's interesting, and I think most people are just afraid of stuff, and it's like there's this self judgment
Mm-hmm.
inside of me, or like this fear. I think it stems from fear that like my life would be more difficult if I was gay.
I think that's an unfortunately an objectively true statement at this point. As you know, as a trans woman, especially in the periods where I was closeted towards, I would occasionally just present male, and then you know behind closed doors around personal friends, I would act female, and occasionally go out in public presenting as a female. The night and day difference of the way that I was treated, you know, as a straight passing white male in the South, I was objectively on top of the social totem pole.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I never had to worry about really anything because my identity, my gender, my sexuality, as it was perceived by others, was never going to inhibit me.
Mm-hmm.
No one was ever going to be like, oh, look at that straight man
Yeah.
doing straight man shit. But now, like, I, you know, I am out full time. I go by Amara full time. I use she, her pronouns. And I will walk into a place dressed very casually, but I'll have done my makeup that day and, you know, just get stared at. I typically stare right back and people
Yeah.
avert their eyes because I'm not going to feel ashamed for who I am. But the fact is, I can't deny that there is that societal aversion to things that are different. And I think that's really obvious in the South.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Yeah. I mean, shoot, I grew up Catholic, and so I heard growing up, I mean, shoot, the the difference of opinion in Catholicism and other Protestant religions, like, like, oh, those Baptist or those Catholics, it's like, aren't y'all on the same team?
Yeah. You'd think. You would
Yeah.
think so.
I mean, like, I get it. There's all these denominations, but aren't y'all all Team Jesus? But excuse me.
Oh, no worries.
But no, it's and honestly, the fear of being wrong is probably why it took me so long to come to terms with who I am, because like I said, if I'm being 100% honest with myself, I knew as early as 12 who I was, and it took me well over a decade to finally accept who I was. And that was only because I had been going to therapy for a year, and I really worked through a lot of things that held me back. Namely was how it would affect my family. My mother was very much a control freak throughout growing up. She saw me more as an accessory to her rather than my own individual. And so, like, I went through the emo phase that everybody in the early 2000s went through, and she absolutely hated it. And understandable, it wasn't a good look on me. I can admit that. But it got to the point that she was so like adamantly against it, literally forced me to go to a barber and cut my hair from like the long emo fringe to some fuckboy crew cut while I'm sobbing in the chair. First off, fuck the barber for just sitting there and like pretending I'm not sobbing in his chair. Just,
it's like, gotta get paid.
Yeah, like fucking getting the haircut. This is what the mom wants. And I didn't really realize how traumatic that was until I realized that like it had been so ingrained in me that my own life, I was such a people pleaser. It was literally just what other people would think of me, what other people would dictate. And it took a long time for me to really realize that that doesn't matter. I mean, think about it. Like, how long have you lived in Shreveport?
Okay, so I've been in Shreveport for 3 years.
Okay.
But I was living in Bossier my whole life.
So you've lived here your whole life?
Yeah.
Okay. I, aside from 4 years, have lived here my whole life. We've never met.
Yeah.
We've never met, and unless we decided to keep in touch, we could very much never meet again. Why would I give a fuck what you think about my life, and why would you give a fuck what I think about your life? Because as soon as I leave this room, if we don't keep in touch, we cease to exist to each other, just like we have for the past 20-something years. Yep. So kind of realizing that, like, there was a thing that I used to say to other people that I could never really commit to myself. I used to say that you are your highest power, that ultimately how you live your life, you answer to yourself when you lay your head down at night, and if you're happy with who you are and you're happy with how you're living. Nothing else really matters. Everybody else's opinions of you are not your responsibility. And I could tell people that because, like, you go live your life. And then I would be a hypocrite and be like, well, I don't want my mom to be embarrassed by having a trans woman as a child. It took me a while to like wrap my head around how wrong that was. I was like, my mom's life does not change with how I live my life. Mm-hmm. And why am I letting her feelings about me dictate who I am?
And your happiness.
And my happiness. Like, I don't speak to my family anymore.
Yeah.
Their choice. They could reach out whenever they wanted. But when I think about it, I'm the happiest I've ever been. I am my authentic self. I have worked through so much and improved my quality of life so much. And me becoming the happiest I've ever been is what caused my family to never speak to me again.
Damn.
It's kind of fucked up. And it's not my fault. Like,
I resonate with that too.
exactly. And I think a lot of people can resonate with that, because it doesn't just apply to being a trans woman. It doesn't just apply to being gay. It doesn't just apply to being an atheist when you grew up, the child of the pastor or something like that. It should resonate with everybody that, like, sometimes you will make quality of life improvements that make you happier and put you on a better path, and you'll be condemned or judged for it. Like,
It's not something that we look up to
yeah.
in society. Like, hey, I may not, like, it's kind of like, at this point, like, we're just having this conversation. Like, I don't understand what you're, like, my goal is to gain understanding of what you're experiencing, but I got no reason to condemn you for doing you.
Exactly.
Like, that's one thing, like, even if, and I'm trying to take more of a feeling approach to this situation because I'm always so in my head with, like, rationality and stuff and words.
Yeah.
So it's because, I mean, you can't help how you feel.
Yeah.
I mean, you can try to change how you feel, but you feel how you feel. And, this is stuff we were talking about with your parents. You being yourself, being authentic, and then them not liking that, and you're happier now because you're living your life the way you should without judgment of other people. Like you said, it's not your responsibility for them to, like, that's their shit they got to work out.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's kind of like how, like, when I wasn't religious anymore with my parents, eventually I finally told them, and it wasn't like a huge deal, but I don't think, like, they ever processed it. I don't know. My parents are in a weird boat, but I started getting deep down, like, philosophy, down the rabbit hole of, like, understanding existence and my understanding of the world and experience and awareness and stuff. And I could go way down that all day, every day. But I guess, like, I have, like, Buddhist, like, I have a lot of different philosophies from, like, Eastern stuff, but I don't really identify with any of it. I just, oh God, let me put it. Just the stuff with parents and me being myself is apparently offensive to them. And it's not even, like, I'm not bashing on religion. I'm not bashing on anything. But I just asked them a simple question. I said, so how do we know, like, this room, like, you put it perfect. I loved what you said about as soon as we leave, it's like we never existed, or like you cease to exist. Like, all we know for certain is that what's going on in this room is going on, and we think we know that, right?
Yeah.
So outside, we don't know the world's going on because we're not there to experience it. And that's like a philosophical thing, right?
Yeah.
So I brought that up, and the next thing you know, my dad's calling me a QAnon. Like, if you believe that, he's like, so you don't believe what you see on TV? He's like, I genuinely believe what I see on TV. I was like, but unless I'm there, I can't know 100%. There's always got to be a variable of, like, something could be a deep fake. I'm not suggesting that it is, but I'm just saying it could. My problem is everybody thinks they're right all the time. And I think people need to be aware that we are way more prone to being wrong about stuff. And that was my point, but I never got that across. And I almost just left the room because they started yelling at me. I think they're a little disillusioned with at least that conversation. And instead I stayed and I ended up in a yelling match because I wanted to defend myself. I was like, I'm tired of y'all putting words in my mouth that I've never said. Y'all are projecting all y'all's own insecurities onto me in conversations you have with other people that aren't open-minded. I was like, I'm your son, for Christ's sakes. Like, that, like, why are y'all treating me like this? And they're like, well, that's the reason why, because you're our son. Like, I was like, oh, so you'll treat everybody else with more respect than you'll treat your own child. Understood.
And I think a lot of that stems from the you're my son, you're a reflection of me mentality, that my mother used to, basically guilt trip me by saying things like, oh, I guess it's true what they say, single moms can't raise good children. I'm like, just like fucking, I didn't say that. But like when I do think that it is a big problem that a lot, and it kind of leads to the generational trauma that we often experience where parents are trying to raise their children to be reflections of themselves and a testament to their success or failures as a parent versus letting them become their own individual.
Yes.
You know, they're trying to steer instead of just giving training wheels. Like
that's the difference between teaching people what to think and teaching people how to think.
Yeah.
Like if I think about having a child, I want my child to become a critical thinker and be able to make conclusions for him or herself. And that's something I think a lot about. I was like, I'm not going to push religion. If anything, I'm gonna explain religion as biased as I can. Be like, there's all these other religions, and like you can believe what you want to believe. Like this is what I believe, but you don't have to believe what I believe. I want you to be happy and follow your path.
Yeah.
And I think that's when you got all that unprocessed trauma from like their childhood, their generation, and you didn't find good coping mechanisms with that. And you still have a lot of this insecurity, doubts, and fears that haven't been addressed because they're not going to therapy. I think a lot of that is just projected onto their children. And I understand that. So I could be mad at them. And I'm still upset because this is like pretty recent.
Yeah.
I haven't talked to him since, actually.
No, I definitely understand that. Part of the whole journey to being able to accept myself was literally just having to unlearn a lot of things that were pushed onto me through really no fault of my own as a child. And so what it really comes down to is just like trying to understand who you are feels like it's a lot harder when someone gave you a blueprint, almost a character that they expected you to be. Like,
love that.
Here's your script. This is what we imagined for you. This is the role we're casting you in. And you're looking through the script and you're like, yeah, I've made some revisions. Oh, what'd you change? Everything. This sucks. Like, this is not me in the slightest. And I never tried to be the picture perfect child. I never tried to be like the poster child. I just wanted to be me. But the problem is I had no idea who that was, so I would let everybody else define me, whether it was my parents, my grandparents, my partners. I had a lot of relationships end because my partner, I was the just anything you wanted me to be, albeit I had no identity outside of I was that person's partner. And like, no one wants to date a reflection.
Yeah.
Like, and I had no identity. I was so absorbed in literally anything. So I never had to choose or make any decisions for myself, which led to a lot of, one thing I learned in therapy is like, who you are is going to like leak out and be expressed in other ways. As I was slowly coming to terms with the fact that I was a trans woman, I would defend myself from being accused of being trans when no one else was actively accusing me.
Projecting it.
Yes, projecting it. Like, I was talking to someone about tattoos I wanted to get. I was like, well, I really want to get like sunflowers. Sunflowers are my favorite flowers, but like, I'm not trans or anything. I just really like flowers. I think flowers are pretty, and guys can like flowers. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. And my partner at the time, she was just like, nobody said you were trans because you like flowers.
Yeah.
And so like I would spend pretty much years saying weird stuff like that. Like, again, like defending myself from my own projections because I was so scared people would think that I was trans. I was like, no, I'm not trans, because I was terrified.
Yeah.
I was terrified to be trans. And now that I'm on the other side of it, I just kind of feel silly.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, this is right. This, I could tell you, I have several friends who accepted who they were a lot easier and a lot quicker. But they also expressed it differently. For instance, I thought that I never really had gender dysphoria. You know, this absolute hatred of my appearance. I didn't like look at myself in the mirror and be like, "Oh, I'm disgusting." But like some of my other friends were, but I was apathetic, right? I was an attractive person in high school. I looked good. I can acknowledge that objectively. And I was complimented a lot. I was told that I was handsome. I was told that I was attractive, that I looked really good. Those meant nothing to me. Meant absolutely nothing to me. I was like, okay. In middle school, one of my friends once told me, she was like, how do you have more feminine bone structure than me? That's not fair. That compliment stuck out more and carried with me for more than any other compliment I ever had. Like I mean, she said that in passing when I was in middle school in like 7th grade, and I clung to that for years. And so like the first time that I presented female, when I was still just trying to figure out my identity, figure out who I was, the absolute euphoria of looking in the mirror and seeing my reflection match what I always imagined myself to be, what I always felt I should see when I look back, I knew I couldn't go back. Like I saw myself the way that I'd always wanted to see myself. I was like, this is who I am. And I realized that like my dysphoria was just the apathy, the fact that like whether I was out of shape, in shape, whatever, I never cared about my body. Never. I just could not be motivated to care about it. And now I'm like counting my calories, checking out, my measurements, seeing, am I getting bigger in the right areas? Am I shrinking in the right areas? Is everything going the way they want to go? I'm practicing my makeup. I'm very much like so invested in myself for the first time in my life. And I think one of the biggest things that made me realize that this was who I was, I used to have really bad death anxiety. Like just the thinking about the end could always just ruin my day. And I worked through it in therapy, and we got to the bottom of it. And it was the fact that I was afraid that I would die ashamed of myself.
Yeah.
And so we started working. It's like, well, what are you ashamed of? What are you ashamed of? And I'm ashamed that I will have died never living. And then there was a time where I realized I would trade 10 years as a woman for 50 years as a man. Like, and that just kind of cemented. I was like, I, a person deathly afraid of dying, unable to comprehend an afterlife or a lack thereof, would gladly shorten my life just to be who I was. And that kind of really cemented it home. I was like, that's what I'm ashamed of. Because the fact is, ever since I accepted I was trans, and last March, I accepted I was trans a year ago, death has never bothered me as a concept. I know that one day my time will end. I don't know what comes after. And that doesn't really matter to me because I know how I'm going to live until then. I know that one day I will give back the energy I was given. Part of the cycle of life and death. I'll decompose, feed something else, whatever you want to say. But until that happens on this journey, I will live unapologetically as myself.
I love that. That's those were wise words, honestly. A lot of people could benefit.
I absolutely advocate for therapy. Is the only reason I am semi-decently functioning.
It's that death anxiety. I experienced that because ultimately I call myself a optimistic nihilist. I don't believe there's any objective meaning or morals to the world. I just know that, like, I believe they're all subjective myself. But that doesn't matter. Like, that's almost like a free card. Like, so, like, part of what I was saying earlier about I like to think that I'm open-minded and that I love myself, no matter what. Like, just, what is it? where you love yourself without borders, or what is it called?
I'm not familiar with that term.
It's your parents are supposed to give it to you.
Self-acceptance.
No, I don't give you that. God, man, I can't think of this word. I said this word so many times. Okay, we're gonna get it. It's just gonna come to me. The universe will give it to me. Well, yeah, I was talking about the acceptance and the being able to accept myself no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Accepting that, even though I don't feel that way, if I did feel that way in the future, like I want to love myself no matter what. So, or not judge myself no matter what. So it's like I'm still deprogramming. Because, like, to me, anything's on the table. Like, if I feel it, if I want to do it, what's stopping me? Like, I want to live true to myself, like you say. And even if people don't understand that or get it, well, that's their fucking problem.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not that I feel like I've never been attracted to men, but if I ever did, like, it's that question right there. If I ever did, I already feel judgment towards that if I did, and I want to cut that shit out.
Yeah,
like
I get that a lot. Like basically you're saying just, yeah, I've never felt that urge, but I already know that if I did, I would be ashamed, and I want to fix that. I want to fix that thinking because, like, there's nothing inherently wrong.
Yeah.
You know, and the fact that I think it kind of makes us feel bad that we can't honestly say that we would live our unapologetic lives no matter who we were, when we know, if I was gay, I would be ashamed of it.
Yeah. Or I don't think it's ashamed as much as it's fearful. It's fearful society. And I'm like, that means I still care way more than I want to care. You know what I mean? So it's like, and then those go into I'm sure people have experienced this where they're like, a lot of people are attracted to men and they're in the closet about it, or vice versa, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they just try to like beat it down and stuff. Like me, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know how to put this. It's like I'm not experiencing that, but the ego protection from judgment almost wants to just push anytime you like think of something away, like preemptively. And I'm like, I'm very mindful of my thoughts coming in, and I'm always like, no, don't push things away. I'm like, look at it deeper. You know what I mean? Like, hey, this judgment, like, why would you care? You know what I mean? Like, what is wrong inside yourself, like, with the insecurity that you couldn't be secure in your beliefs and how you feel personally, especially considering you don't have any control over it. So,
yeah, no, I like that. I like that. That's kind of a good point. It's like, it's not so much as the what if I am, what if I'm not. That's kind of irrelevant to the point. It's the fact that, like, why do I still feel like I would be holding myself back?
Yeah.
And no, I like that. That's a good point. I think a lot of people hold themselves back for various reasons, like you said. You know, the people that can't face their sexuality and just you see it eat at them, or like miserable. You know, I mean, how many people like have come out later in life, like, and you know, oh, I'm gay, but I have a wife and kids, so now I'm stuck.
Yeah.
You know, and then, you know, it always seems like they get busted with male prostitutes or female prostitutes, depending on what you know, which way they swing. But like, just to let other people's opinions of something shape you to the point that you deny yourself, it's a painful way to live. And I think a lot of people need to think more about that in just other terms. Like, it doesn't just apply to sexuality, it doesn't just apply to identity, it applies to something as
you're like preaching right now.
Yeah.
I'm loving it.
I'm not meaning to preach, but like, I just
no, that's like that's a compliment in my
Thank you. I mean, it really I think a lot of people do have trouble with grasping their complete identity because of expectations that have been set by their parents, by society, by anything. And just it's a lot harder to live unapologetically than people seem to think.
Yeah, it's kind of like how if say you're trying to get over a significant other or something, and you're like, oh fuck them, I don't care about them no more, but you really do, and you're trying to convince yourself that you don't care, but you do. I've experienced that recently, and I'll catch myself like going on the offense because you know what I'm talking about, where you're like you're preemptively like go on the offense so you know you don't get hurt.
No, that is something that I struggle with too. For a long time, and we don't have to get into that. That's a whole different podcast. But like I used to be the type of person that's like, look, relationships are always going to end. Someone's going to be the victim. Someone's going to be the villain.
Mm-hmm.
I would rather be the villain. So I would pick fights anytime there was some like time of discontent. My partner would come up to me and they'd be like, hey, remember I asked you not to wash the not to put the wine glasses in the dishwasher, it ruins them. It's like, yeah, well, I think our relationship is dying and I hate you. And they're like, where did that come from? So they're trying to fix the thing, and it's like I couldn't let there be like this discontent. I had to be the one hurting someone so I could get off easier, because I couldn't face.
You couldn't have it the other way around.
I couldn't have it. I could not handle the other way around. I could not be vulnerable to anybody. So I would lash out, and that just kind of fits the whole not being able to be vulnerable with yourself part, like always having to lash out and have a scapegoat.
Yeah, that's a lot of like people are raised where men don't cry.
Worst thing you can do to anybody like that.
Yeah. it's
bury
so
it down, drink forever, and then one day you will die.
Yeah. And this is like my curiosity's got me. So like I don't believe in like self. So like I think the sense of self is an illusion because I haven't met anybody or been able to define myself in a good enough answer. Now, that's more of a philosophical level. Like, it makes sense for us to have names, and it feels like we exist at like I get always caught up in the physical. Angelo, I've had him on the podcast. He's one of my best friends, and he's like, people get caught up in that I got a body, I got this and that. But I mean, I can explain it further for sure. But I don't believe that like Timer Malloy is an illusion, a very convincing illusion. So, like when it comes to identity, I'm very curious because, like, as to what or like how you would describe, like you saying you identify as a female, like what does that feel like? Like,
so that feels like, that's an interesting point.
My thoughts, like just thinking about it, I was like, okay, so I mean, I could be totally wrong. We could totally have souls and exist, and like I don't know shit. Let me just preface that. I don't know shit. I'm just trying to know some shit.
So as far as like identity and knowing yourself, it honestly really does just stem from faith in yourself, to an extent. Like I look at the signs of how I feel, and between the fact that I just never really connected with the perception of my gender, like like being perceived as a male was never something that resonated with me.
Ooh, yeah. You just you saying that right now has got my brain juices flowing.
Like, someone looking at me like I'm supposed to be the provider, the guardian, that never resonated with me. Oh, you're so handsome, you're so strong, like what a man should be, like all the expectations of a man never really felt like me. Like that always felt like something that I was supposed to be. But on the inverse, the perceptions of being a woman, I resonate so much more with being the nurturer, the caretaker sort, because I think a lot of people often confuse sex and gender.
Yeah, and that's one of the questions I wrote because so what? Explain to me.
So your sex is how you were assigned, and that is relevant for medical purposes. For instance, no matter how many surgeries I have, I will still have a prostate. I will never have a womb. I will never be able to give birth. I accept that. That is part of my sex. I will be a 50-year-old woman getting prostate exams. Lucky doctor.
Just another Sunday.
Yep, just another Sunday. But and a trans man, same thing. There are certain biological aspects that we unfortunately cannot escape, and that is your sex. However, your gender is how you are perceived.
Okay.
That is what people mean when they say it is a social construct, because whether we're talking about gender roles or just, the fact that I can get people to call me different pronouns without saying a thing solely by how I present, it shows that gender is a matter of perception. The fact is, if I tie my hair back, tuck it under a baseball cap, wear loose-fitting clothes, I'm going to get manned all day. Then I let my hair down, put my makeup on, dress a certain way, I'm going to be perceived more feminine. And that is kind of where people that identify as non-binary exist. Like, they're not trying to be perceived as one or the other, because we have, with each perception of gender, we have expectations, and some people don't feel like any of that applies to them.
I love the way you put that. It was like, I'm already like, I got all these thoughts going through my head now. I'm like, so, because that's what tripped me up before. That's actually what got me to write down, like, what's your beliefs on sex and gender?
Yeah.
Because I'm just so curious. So I'll be like looking up. So I'm like, what are they like? What are these people trying to say? You know what I mean? Because like, I'm always coming at it from a rational angle, which is just words and what we agreed to. Like, all right, you got male and female biologically, but then what is gender? If gender is identity, then you have the whole world automatically projects things onto men and women. Like, men should act a certain way, and everybody's different with what their projections are. So what you're saying is you've never internally identified with what society believes a male should be.
Yes. That is exactly it. Down to the appearance, right? I mean, it can be like, not just like, oh, I don't want to be the breadwinner, I don't want to be the guardian, I don't want to be the provider. I mean, it is down to the appearance of, a man should be like strong, big shoulders, and, tall and chiseled. And it's like, that doesn't sound like me. That's not what I want to be. That's not who I am. That's not an accurate reflection of how I see myself. I see myself softer, nurturing, kinder, more feminine, more delicate. I find that resonates so much better with me, and that's where gender euphoria comes from. Gender euphoria is whenever it finally lines up. I mean, there are times where, as I've been going through my transition, that I will be having a really good day where my face looks like really soft and round, and I just like, I'll catch my reflection out of the corner of my eye, and for a split second I won't recognize myself.
Yeah.
Because I'm so far from where I started, and it literally makes me physically giddy.
Yeah.
I'm just so happy and so ecstatic. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm really coming together. This feels so right. This is who I am, and this is how I want to be perceived. I want people to look and see Amara. I want people to see that I am a woman. And that's why it's transgender, not transsex.
Yeah. Okay. I like that.
I'm never going to, again, even if I have gender confirmation surgery,
Mm-hmm.
even if I am visually indistinguishable from a cisgendered woman, I will never try to act like my sex was female. Because one, that's an objective lie. And two, it would undermine all the work and time and effort that I put in to becoming myself, and would be just a massive disrespect to everybody who's made this journey. Because the fact is, like, this is probably the hardest thing I've ever done, and it's been worth it every step of the way. And I'm never going to pretend that I didn't endure all this.
Yeah.
Because I knew who I was before my body ever looked like it, and I pursued that. When everyone looked at me and saw nothing but masculinity, I knew that that wasn't who I was, and I pursued, and I was strong enough to endure the judgmental stares, the disconnect from family, the snide remarks, the judgment, everything, because I knew who I was, and I wanted the outside to reflect the inside.
Yeah. So when you have this internal dialogue, internal feeling,
Mm-hmm.
and you would rather be put under the gender norms or the gender expectations of a woman over male. So you would change your outer appearance to fit. I don't know. It's so weird putting it like this. If you look like a woman, and the woman's gender norms, was it right? The expectations of how women act would be what you're after. If you had to get typed up to you fit more of women sort of feelings and stuff, like the softness, like everything you were just saying.
Yeah. If I had to be put in a box, that is the box that I feel like I belong in, versus the box that I was originally put in. As someone who was born male and perceived as a male, being perceived as a male has never brought me joy.
Yeah.
I have been perceived as a female for 6 months, and it has been the best time of my life. I have never heard my dead name spoken in a way that gives me the joy that a partner or someone who cares about me says my name now.
Yeah.
It is down to reshaping my entire identity to fit what I feel is true to me. And it's more than just the norms, like the gender norms and like the wanting to be in that box.
Mm-hmm. Is it just like it's closer to it, how you see yourself inside?
Yeah, I think because that's one of those things that I've never really broken down to like a presentation or like wrote a thesis on or anything. It's just something that I exist feeling that what I was not right. And then as I started transitioning, I knew I was going down the right direction, because when I first started transitioning, I was like, well, I don't really need bottom surgery. I would just be happy being seen this way and presenting this way. And so having a sex organ that didn't match up with what I wanted or what I felt I should have didn't bother me. But as I became more and more feminine, and as I was perceived as a woman and treated as a woman, it started to bother me more.
Yeah.
Because it was just that one thing that didn't feel right anymore, because I would see this woman in the mirror and I would absolutely love how I looked, but there would just be that one thing that just wasn't right. And so it went from, well, I guess I could live with it, to I want bottom surgery. Like,
Well, I mean, yeah, why not?
yeah.
Why not do what you want?
Yeah. Well, mostly cost and,
Yeah, well,
booking
that
the
money.
surgery. Yeah.
That cost comes in almost everything.
Especially since most healthcare plans up until recently considered gender confirmation surgery a cosmetic procedure.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was in the last 10 years that was changed to be considered a life-saving surgery due to the high suicide rate of trans people who do not get
I actually read
to
about
transition.
that. Yeah.
A lot of people, quote that statistic like, oh, this percentage of trans people commit suicide. It's like, those are people who never get to transition. Like, the number's so high. And not only that, you transition and then you're just treated like shit, because it's such a hot topic. You're consistently just dehumanized and treated differently. It's like, is the suicide rate and depression rate so high because they're making the wrong choice and they're being coerced into it by the far left fucking conspiracies? Or is it just the fact that all they wanted to do was be themselves and you treated them like shit for it? Seems pretty fucking depressing to me.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna ask if there wasn't so much projection of what men and women should be and behave and act and feel, would you have felt necessary to transition at all? Or if people would just stop projecting what a man should be and what a woman should be, and we could just utterly be ourselves without getting things projected onto us.
So let's say that hypothetically there was no term for gender, right? We were all just human,
Okay.
And the only differences were physical, not the way we were perceived. You could fill any role. The assigned male at birth could be the gatherer, the nurturer, the gentle person. You would still have the issue of my body didn't match the way I wanted it to. So it's not just the way I want to be perceived in terms of my role in society or anything like that. It is the fact that when I look in the mirror, I feel like I'm staring at a stranger's reflection.
And what is that called?
Dysphoria.
Dysphoria. Okay. Gender dysphoria.
Yes.
Okay.
Because the fact is, like, it does not matter what you call it. If the roles were reversed to where I was born, a woman, but felt the same symptoms of like, oh, how I am doesn't add up, this isn't right, I would then just be a trans man. So it's not a matter of what we call it or anything like that. Mm-hmm. It is just a matter of it's not matching up. We just happen to have words for it. Because the fact is, again, if there was no gender, I would still want my body to look different than the body I was given, which means I would still need to take hormones to adjust it. We just wouldn't have to call it anything, but it doesn't change the fact that I would not like my body until I started taking hormones to give it a more traditionally feminine appearance. And so I think that's kind of really where that stems down to, is like, it's not just gender norms. It's also the physical visualization of yourself.
Yeah, you explained it very well. I somewhat after this podcast too. I'm gonna be thinking about this for days too. I'm gonna be like, because you had so many good points, and like already, I understand it way better than I did reading anything online. And I spent hours online trying to understand stuff, and I'll get on like binges of like trying to learn something too, and I'm just like, I also don't like looking at like, because it's more conceptual, or like if you've never met a trans person and you're thinking of trans people, I'm like, but we're all just people, like we're one individual. So it's like you're just gonna your brain's going to try to like group people together. I'm like, I don't like that. I don't like trying to group people together. It's never really worked out. It's literally what we were just talking about, being like, oh, men are this way, women are this way. But yeah, I don't know. I guess my most curious thing, and you've been explaining it really well, is, man, you just like, it's almost like answered like my internal question of like, cause if I don't believe, like, cause I identify as a human being and like I identify as a man or whatever, but like my whole concept or my beliefs of, if I don't exist, like let me tell you what I assumed it was, okay? It was that I was thinking you almost had to believe in like a soul.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. This is really difficult for me to convey because this is a high level discussion of some stuff I'm pretty ignorant about, but I don't know. I wish I wrote down a whole piece of paper. I'll be like, I wrote all this down. I'm going to read some of it off.
I mean, hey, we can always do a part 2. We can kind of compare your mentality to when you first met me versus what the impact of meeting someone and how it changed your perspective. Because I would love to hear that. I hope you take away from this a better understanding of, what it means to be trans and what it means to just kind of be yourself. Because ultimately, like, any way you slice it, I think it's very interesting that you don't believe in the self when I'm over here literally just trying to be myself, trying to be, who I am in my soul. And I don't necessarily mean that in the religious sense, like not even in a religious sense, but just the simple fact of like my soul is like who I am at my core. That is right. My sense of self.
That's right. That's how I'd put it too. And I'm still trying to learn stuff. It's kind of hard to like learn and get deep into stuff when you're like trying to work and survive and put up with a bunch of other bullshit in your life. And
yeah, because these types of questions, while they are engaging and thought-provoking, when you mix them in with the rest of your life, it gets swept under the rug. Yeah. How does this help me survive?
Yep, exactly.
It doesn't? Okay. I don't have the energy for it because
I'll push you off for later, and then later never comes too.
Yeah, I'm absolutely worked to the bone. Don't have time to be this existential. Let's just put it away.
It's kind of my life in a nutshell. Yeah. I wouldn't call it a crisis anymore, but it was a crisis. It's just, I don't know. It's already been enlightening. I think a lot of people, and you would know this better than anybody, they get really hung up on gender versus sex, like you were saying.
I definitely see that the most. It is very obnoxious because a lot of the people that argue that gender versus sex and things like that are never really actively trying to learn, or they're going off of an outdated bare bones understanding of biology. And because there's so many people who say that, well, sex is just if you're born with an XX chromosome, you're a male. If you're born, female. If you're born XY, you're male, and that's it.
Yeah.
Even though there are XXY females, like cisgender females, there are XYY males. Like chromosomes, we acknowledge that chromosomes is not a perfect science in terms of reproduction, right?
Yeah.
There are conditions and diseases where you have missing chromosomes or chromosomes present. But we also acknowledge that, mess ups can happen. Yet we find it far-fetched that someone could have a completely feminine mindset and then, oops, you accidentally got a Y chromosome, now you're a boy.
Yeah.
Like, because there's more to biology, and I have a very not great understanding of biology, more than high school, less than, a professional. But
I like the way you put that. I'm going to use that.
Yeah. I remember whenever I first went to college and I started taking science classes, especially biology, you basically spend the first semester going, wow, so everything we were taught in high school was grossly oversimplified.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, because you really didn't need that you needed like the core understanding, but you didn't need the semantics, the details. And so knowing that in my basic intro to biology classes in college, I was having to unlearn a vast majority of what I learned. I can just assume that as the level goes on, it gets more and more sophisticated to the point that like it's not as black and white, and it is more complex than I can really wrap my head around, which is why it's always amused me that some of the biggest naysayers about trans people always say like, you don't know biology.
Yeah.
It's like, I know enough to know that I don't know enough about biology.
That's right. That's right.
to speak as a, you know, aficionado, or as a law. I can't speak as if my understanding of biology is law.
That's it's at a certain point you learn enough to know that you don't know enough.
Yes.
And everybody that hasn't got there is doing simple math.
No, absolutely. I think that knowing how much you don't know is a mark of intelligence.
Oh, absolutely.
Because what is it called where the dumbest person always thinks that they're the smartest in the room?
Is it
Dunning-Kruger?
Yep, I was about to say it. Yeah.
Dunning-Kruger effect.
Yep, that is one of my favorite words. One of my favorite phrases. I'm like, oh wow. I was like, and the thing is, I'll get into like a debate with someone at work about anything, and they'll think they're right, and I think I'm right, but I'm like, well, you know, I very well could be wrong, and they're like, you are wrong. I'm like, the fact that you can't see how wrong you could be right now just it really shows. But at the same time, when let's just say 50% of the time I don't have nothing to prove. You know what I mean? And now I'll let it go. I'm like, I don't care if you think that I'm wrong, because what the hell does it matter if I'm going to die tomorrow?
And that is the most freeing realization you can have. The sooner people stop arguing with strangers on the internet, they'll feel a lot better.
Praise the Lord.
Because no one goes on the internet like, man, I really hope some random person on Discord changes my worldviews today.
Yeah.
No, it's, I want to hear what I know, and I want it to be confirmed. Yeah, I want someone to say, you're right, and here's a cookie.
Here's your confirmation bias for the day.
Yes, exactly. No one, and I am speaking in generalizations, because maybe there are some people, you know, like you wanted your worldview challenged, so you're like, I want to do this podcast and talk to someone who has lived and experienced I can only imagine. And you have admitted that it's got, you know, given you a better understanding, changed perspectives, made you think about things. You are open to new information being presented and changing your worldview. But you also set up an entire podcast, found someone, invited them here. You didn't go on Facebook and argue with the first trans woman you could find.
What do you mean? That may have been the right thing to do, right? No. Fuck. No, dude, Facebook's toxic as fuck, too. Yeah. Oh, my God. I tell Nick, too. I was like, I'll be on Facebook. And I've been on it too much lately. Like, I'll move it further back in my phone to where I got to click more buttons to get to it. Because when it's 2 clicks away, I'll catch myself going to it and it's not there anymore. And I'll be like, holy shit, I was mindlessly droning towards my little dopamine fix. And then when in the comments section, I've read so many negative comments, I have a negative tone when I read the comments. And I was like, I'm aware of that. So I got to check that. But most people ain't going to check that. They're just going to immediately project. And it's just, we're constantly projecting our fears and insecurities onto other people.
And confirmation bias is a powerful thing. Like, I'll be honest. I'm really bad about it with like things that I agree with, you know, especially memes. For some reason, we seem to take memes as like a source of information. It's like, this meme resonates with my worldview. I'm gonna share it without thinking or questioning it at all.
I got a quote here. I love this quote. I actually listened to it on another podcast. I'm about to start quoting this every podcast. Okay. It says, we question all of our beliefs except the ones that we really believe in and those we never think to question.
Yeah, no, that is absolutely accurate. Like, And again, any debate on Facebook often feels like it comes from like just it's not from a place of intellectual honesty. It's not there for growth. It is there to be right, because the fact is, when you hit somebody with like that big argument that you think, that big gotcha, and those likes start coming in from the people that support you, every little hit, it's like, there's that serotonin. There's that
Yeah.
serotonin. There's that validation. Like, yes, validate me. That's what you're doing. You're presenting for your peers.
We live in an insecure society,
Yeah.
I believe.
And I mean, it's easy to see why. Like, and we can go down the social media ruined your life conspiracy theory, not conspiracy theories, like it is objectively. Um, there's studies to show that it's led to a worse self-image. You know, the more time you spend on like Instagram or TikTok viewing how other people live, the more it impacts you, because you're comparing your very real, very flawed life with a cookie cutter presentation of a perfect life.
Comparison is the thief of joy.
Yes.
That's very true, I've found.
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah, this is wonderful. I'm so happy you came on.
Yeah.
I'd love to have you on a second podcast.
No, absolutely.
With more time to think about it. What did you expect coming in after our like conversation on Discord? Or
Well, I wasn't sure what type of stance you were going to take, because once I watched your podcast, I realized that I felt more relaxed, because like you are very much open to having a back and forth and learning. But like initially I was like, I hope this isn't one of those like contrarian devil advocate types where I'm just basically getting grilled for 2 hours and having to defend every aspect of my being. It was very much just, I want to understand, because I know that this is not something I've been through, and I very much enjoy, because everything I've told you is just my own anecdotal experiences and my own opinions. Like, I'm just telling you, as a definitively trans person with her own unique experiences, this is how I see the world. And this is, maybe you can see the differences in our worldviews and how who I am has shaped them.
yeah,
Because that's all I can really do, is just share who I am and how I got here with you, and you can interpret and see the differences for yourself.
I see so much of myself in yourself. I'm a firm believer that we're way more similar than we are different, and I mean that with everybody. We tend to focus. I don't know. I don't like, because this is me projecting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I say statements of belief like this, but maybe it's the news, maybe it's just all the social media I'm watching, but I just feel like a lot of people are negative. Like, it's rare to meet somebody that is A, comfortable with themselves, and B, it's got a positive attitude. So there, like, let's say your day happens, you know the quote, like, life's 90% or 10% what happens to you, 90% how you react to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I believe that for the most part.
Okay.
It depends. But people, they like say they see you and they don't understand you,
Mm-hmm.
and then different is bad, kind of like monkey brain, right? Like, bad is different. You don't get it. There's man, there's female, and you're like, that's sex. You agree with that? That to me, that's very rational. But you're like, I'm talking about identity.
Yeah.
So that's more the vein that I'm like, well, the way I personally see it is, if you want to identify as a female and people respect your choice and you're living your best life by doing that, and you want to change your body because you can,
Mm-hmm.
like, fuck yeah, go for it. Like, if that's going to make you happier and more fulfilled, like, I don't think anybody should ever try to stop someone from doing that, trying to be themselves. My understanding, because it's so much the same way with me, like with my parents, I'm like, I'm going to be myself. It's, and that's going to piss you off. And that's not my problem, you know. But I don't know, just that topic, you saying that, like, it's not my responsibility for you to be happy with me.
Yeah.
That is like, fuck, that should be like the title of the video or something.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I think that applies to all facets of people's lives. I mean, we get set in these expectations. Our parents have expectations for us and how we will develop and live our lives before we ever even form a sense of self. Like, it is a predetermined fate almost of who we're going to be, who they want their child to be. And I can confidently say that I hope that this is something that we see more in future generations. If I decide to have children, the only thing I want my child to be is themselves. I am not going to, like, obviously I want them to be successful, but again, success is a subjective term. A person who,
That's how you measure success.
how you
right?
measure
Yeah.
success, yeah, you can work yourself up the corporate ladder and you can be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company and you are objectively successful in the business world, and then you go home and absolutely hate your life
Yeah.
because yes, you did all this stuff, but for what? You don't feel like that fulfills you. That's not your version of success. That's what you were told was success. And so it's the same kind of thing. The expectations are set for us before we're ever even defining ourselves. Like, I want my kid to grow up to be a doctor. What if your kid hates biology?
Yeah. It's like the stage is set before the characters come on
exactly.
to play.
Yeah. Like, this is probably a terrible analogy, but like the set is set to be a Shakespearean, period piece like Hamlet or something like that. And the lead actor comes out and he's like, oh, I thought I was going to be in Rent.
Two completely different things.
Yeah. Like, and so just, and it all comes back to, and I feel like we keep talking in a circle about that, but I think it cannot be understated, teaching people to and raising people to be themselves. I think a lot of problems stem from two things: people being afraid to be themselves, and two, people not knowing how to mind their business.
Yeah, it's damn, that could be a fucking podcast in itself, minding your own business.
Because, like, again, it's like I said when I first started talking to you. If I never see you again, what will it matter what you ever thought of me?
Yeah.
The people who sneer at me in restaurants, the people who roll their eyes, the people who realize that I'm trans after they super liked me on Tinder and now they have to, their sexuality is being attacked in their mind because they're like, oh my god, that's a man in a dress and I thought that they were hot and now does that mean I'm gay? And they can't fucking process it. It's like, no, you perceived me as a female trans woman,
Mm-hmm.
and then you learned that there is a part of me that you don't agree with and that makes you not sexually attracted to me. That's the end of it. You're not gay. There's not a gay, like the weird thing of like, oh, men who want to be involved with trans women are secretly gay. There's not a gay man that wants to be with a woman in any way, shape, or form. Those are bisexual
Yeah,
men.
yeah, totally. Totally, yeah,
Like
no, I'm with you.
Yeah, like,
With
so
you.
this perception that you're somehow gay because of what I have in my pants, like, no, you perceive, because you perceived me fully clothed
Yeah.
first. You perceived me and treated me as a woman, and that's what you were attracted to, a woman. And I think a lot of people that have a problem accepting trans people get hung up on this weird feeling of like, oh, I have to be into trans women or I'm not, or I'm problematic and I'm going to get canceled. You don't have to be into a trans woman. Like, just don't fucking murder me when you find out that I'm not a cis
Yeah.
woman. That's all
Yeah.
I'm asking. Don't fucking bash my head in because you can't because you're not comfortable with your sexuality. Like, fuck.
God, man, it's fuck. Yeah, so how? I mean, we're in the South, so like it can't. I can't picture it like a pretty picture for like are people assholes all the time?
Let's see. Let me read you. Let me read you from my phone a Tinder interaction I had.
Oh, this is gonna be
Now,
very.
this is a person who did not realize that I was trans, and they messaged me, and they asked me. They said "girl?" question mark.
Yeah.
Which one? Asking a trans woman if they are a girl is fucking stupid. Like, what was I supposed to say? No, I'm actually a guy. No, I'm a trans woman. I'm a woman. If you ask me if I'm a woman, I'm
Yeah.
going to tell you
Yeah.
I'm a woman. And then he tried to like walk it back and he was like, "Oh, sorry, I meant to say hey girl is my keyboard." And I was like, "Oh, that's funny." I was immediately on guard. And he's like, "I see." And even if it was not my keyboard, with all the fucking trans, not a surprise you see a fucked up guy dreaming he's a pussy.
Oh my god.
I was like, okay,
That
first
was.
off, first off, you swiped on me, sir. That's how matching works. Secondly, if I was a cis woman, not even trans, like, why would I want a partner that's just gonna like, hey, I just met you. Let me spew hate in your general direction. Let me tell you how hateful of a person I am. Because again, I unmatched that person. I've never seen them in public.
Mm-hmm.
I may never see them again. That much hate and vitriol to the way other people live their life, what's it fucking matter to you? Again, as soon as I unmatched him, we both ceased to exist to each other.
Yeah. It's sad though. Nothing's as easy as we want it to be. There is it. I think like part of like I went into drug court for like 2 years because I got arrested like more than once, and I never felt like I really belonged there for the drug usage stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But man, did I get a lot of good shit from there. Like I didn't even know what projecting was, like emotional boundaries, that sort of stuff. But then also realizing like that person that would be easy to call just a piece of shit. Like that would be easy. This is an easy thing to do. Like he's an asshole. He's a piece of shit. He's fucking spewing hatred. And like that person's got his own list of insecurities and trauma and shit they're not dealing with. So instead, like, cause nobody that's really happy is gonna be fucking saying that shit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like
oh yeah, there's always something like deeply, I don't want to say wrong, but like deeply bothering them somewhere that they're not confronting in whatever shape or form. You know, maybe it's the fact that they're not bold enough to acknowledge their own sexuality, or they were so invested in the gender roles that they were assigned. They're like, this is how I have to present. This is how I have to be. You know, I'm a man, so I can't ever, express any feelings. No matter how bad I want to cry, I have to just bury it down and tough through. And then they see a trans woman who they can't comprehend it, but from their perspective, the trans woman just said, you know what, I'm on this team now, so I can cry and I can be soft and I can be vulnerable. It's like, no, that's not fair. I endured this bullshit. You have to endure this bullshit. You know, it could be something as it could be something as simple as that. It could be something as they never had the courage to face who they were, you know. But unfortunately, understanding and humanizing hate or disdain or just cruelty doesn't make it go away, and it doesn't make it okay.
Yeah.
So
You're right.
At a certain point, I'm not interested in why you're a fucking asshole.
Yeah.
I just know you're a fucking asshole.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where my involvement with that person ends. It's not my responsibility to fix them. Go to therapy.
Therapy plug right here.
Yep. You know, Better Health. Any sponsors?
That's what you should do. Yeah. Yeah.
No, and that's
Should plug them up to your different
absolutely.
therapist and be like, hey, I can see you're going through something. Here you go. That will just enrage them too. So
Oh my god.
useful and fun.
Oh my gosh. I love that the people who clearly need therapy the most are the ones most offended by being recommended therapy.
That's how you know if they need it or not. Just
like, I don't need therapy. It's like, okay, whatever you say.
I'm actually I'm having on next Tuesday my one of the counselors from drug court. Super awesome
really
guy.
awesome.
Dude, I fucking love the fuck out of this guy. He's amazing. I've stayed after group and had so many like philosophical conversations with him.
Oh, I love that. No, I absolutely love that. I've always loved therapy. Is just like having that a person who's there to give you professional, unbiased advice that is centered around improving your well-being. Cannot be taken for granted. I mean, so just to talk about how perceptive a therapist can be. My therapist knew that I was trans from the very first session we had, or at least strongly believed that was where my core issue lied, was my inability to accept that. So for months, 1 week at a time, we worked through all my trauma, all my fear, everything, while I tried my active and absolute hardest to not be a trans woman. I was like, it's got to be something else. It's got to be something else. It's got to be something else. And she sat there patiently because she can't just say, hey, you're trans, deal with it. Just I have to realize it.
God.
So for weeks, she sat there. Is like, okay, is it that? Okay, it's not really that. Okay, well, let's dig deeper. What about this? It's like, okay, it might be this. Okay, it's not that. And then finally, we started in October, and then March, I sat down and I was like, I want to talk about my gender identity. And she made a face like, oh, finally.
Yeah.
Like she had been waiting for me to get there. And we talked about it. And, you know, I had that epiphany. I mean, when I realized who I was, it was not oh my God, the world is finally clear. I sobbed uncontrollably because I knew how much harder my life was going to be for me to be my authentic self. It was it was a very overwhelming mixed cry, but I finally understood who I was, and I was so scared of what that meant. And so that was probably one of the hardest days of my life, was just accepting that, like, I finally knew who I was, and I was so scared of what the future held, which is funny because it's been nothing but up.
Yeah.
You know, I've probably been very fortunate. I've probably had one of the best experiences transitioning. I was always kind of decently feminine, so like passing is not as big an issue. I have an amazing support system through my friends, my therapist, and friends that are as close as family. And yes, my family did disconnect with me, aside from one cousin, because she's the goat. But I knew that was going to happen because I knew who my family was.
Yeah.
And so whenever they met my expectations of themselves, I was completely okay with that.
Yeah.
Because I had already known that it was going to come. And it turned out the fear of abandonment was worse than the actual abandonment. It's that ultimatum. It's that you're going to lose this, and then you lose it, and it's like, oh, well, Christmas just got cheaper.
Yeah. Don't need no more gifts.
Exactly. I can shop for myself.
Yeah. Say, I'm going to get myself something nice this year.
Yeah.
It's not going to be new socks either.
I'm not going to lie, though. I do like a good pair of socks.
God. You like them Christmas socks, or you just get some wacky tacky socks?
Oh, a little bit of both. It's corny. I have like 46 different pairs of socks, and none of them look alike, so it's my cup of tea.
Yeah, I just got a bunch of black socks that I probably need new ones. Honestly, I wear this black T-shirt I got on. I literally wear nothing but black T-shirts all day long. I'm bland as fuck.
No, I like to be perceived. What can I say?
Hey,
so
yeah.
That means like, oh, how would I look in this? Oh, I like this. Now I want other people to see me.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Ain't nothing wrong. Look, I've done that before. I just got tired of trying to separate my colors in laundry.
It's okay. See, my secret is I don't. I just I just wash everything on cold and hope to God that it doesn't blend.
Yeah, what you do is just wash it on cold and then just hang dry it. That's how you keep it right there.
Throw it in the dryer or iron it. No.
But now I don't have to make the choice anymore. You know what I mean? I wake up like, what What color shirt am I gonna wear? Well, it's gonna be black today.
I just imagine you're like those cartoon characters where they cut to the closet and it's the same outfit over and
Look,
over.
if you went into my closet right now, I'm telling you, that's what you see. I mean, I got like a couple. I got one nice button-up shirt that's red. It's got flowers on it. I love it. My friends give me shit. He's like, man, why you always wear that same damn shirt? I was like, it's what I got, dude. It's what I got. It's the best investment I've ever fucking made.
Yeah, no, that's funny. Any other questions? Anything? I feel like we
yeah. I mean, we definitely did. We didn't even have to fucking go into. And like I said, I just figured the conversation was gonna go, but just in case, like we hit a lot of these.
Yeah.
I guess we can end it on this one because I'm really curious about this, and if you're gonna come back on, that's gonna I'm like really excited about that too. So we can go deeper into it. But what are your thoughts on the trans community as a wrong one? The trans athletes thing. Like what are your opinion on that? Like
honestly, that's a really good question. I don't follow sports enough, or I believe I forget what the study of like the human body is called. But there are a number of unremarkable trans athletes.
yeah.
Not every athlete who transitions is automatically going to be top seed.
Yeah.
I feel like we grab onto those ones that are and use them and vilify them as like, see, this is why shouldn't be allowed to compete. But then think about the trans boy that was in a Texas wrestling. He wanted to compete with other boys. Mm-hmm. But because he was assigned female at birth, he was forced to, if he was going to wrestle, he had to wrestle women because he was assigned female at birth. And I don't know if you know this, but when you transition to a man, you take testosterone.
Yeah.
He bodied the competition. It wasn't even close.
Yeah.
But
so can anybody take testosterone?
No, he was identified like there's a process of getting prescribed hormones. You need a letter from your therapist or a doctor diagnosing you with the proper term now is gender incongruence. Because we're trying to get away from the stigma of calling it a disorder. So incongruence is the proper term. The fact is there is a diagnosed paper trail that you are a trans person. It's not like a girl can go to the doctor and say, I'm a boy, give me testosterone. You go to an endocrinologist by referral with a letter of recommendation. I had to get a letter from my therapist showing that I understood the gravity of what I was doing. I was in my right mind, and that we had discussed gender enough that they, in their professional opinion, would diagnose me as a person with gender incongruence. So it's not like it's a cheat code to just get ahead in your sport.
Yeah.
And so it feels like there's no right answer because we also start drawing a line. I can't think of the athlete, but there was a cisgendered woman whose testosterone was so high that they took her awards away from her, even though she just naturally had high testosterone. And
they took her awards away from her?
And then it started, you should really look it up and read about it. Like, I think they said that it wasn't fair. And that's what led to the discussion of should women with too high testosterone have to take essentially sedatives or inhibitors to lower their testosterone levels.
Are they? Because I'm gonna look this up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Would it be something like they expected, like foul play? Is that right?
No. It was just had an unfair advantage through birth. That
sounds bullshit.
It does sound bullshit. Especially whenever there were genetic advantages that Michael Phelps had that led to him being
Yeah.
the amazing athlete that he is, that he simply, like, in addition to his amazing work ethic, his dedication, his body type helped him excel. That long and lanky figure. And I believe there was something in the way his muscles would not fatigue as quickly as the average person due to other chemicals that can be studied. And again, I'm not well versed in this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
This is stuff that I've read. I highly recommend fact checking all of this. But when you start limiting natural gifts, like, the fact is, sometimes at that highest level, the person who's going to succeed was just happened to be born lucky.
Yeah.
You know, at that top, I'm talking the top 0.1%, the Olympic level, where, you know, world records are, you know, fractions of a second apart. There is a certain point where genetic advantages will come into play, bone structure,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and so if we start, it's ultimately up to the sports to do the research and to decide if they objectively have an advantage. Maybe a transitioning athlete, if they want to continue to compete in that level, needs to take a year off and let muscles decay or something, you know, because if I were to have kept working out
Yeah.
when I started hormones, my muscles never would have got bigger, but I could, or at least not easily, with me tanking my testosterone through medication, but I could have preserved the muscle mass I had already
Yeah.
developed.
And I have personally no idea how much these things come to play in
Yeah.
like muscles and stuff.
Yeah.
So like I said, I'm very ignorant on especially when it comes to hormones and whatnot.
And that's why, like, if you do start researching, I would start with looking for trans athletes that are the middle of the pack, not remarkable, not the ones stealing the competition, because they do exist and we never talk about them.
Yeah.
They transition, compete in their same sports, and that's it. It's not really a big a problem as the world seems to blow it up to be. And ultimately, it is within the rules and regulations of the governing entity of that sport, and it's up to them to define and change it as they see fit, unfortunately. So it's up to them to do the research and decide, because we also let our misconceptions or our confirmation bias influence that as well. So it's really, I'm not invested enough in sports to have an opinion, but also I know for a fact that there's not a single trans person in the world that transitioned to have an edge in sports.
Yeah.
They, guess what? They were passionate. If they were a high level athlete as a male, they were passionate about that sport. They transitioned.
Still passionate.
Still passionate. Of course they're going to still compete in it. That's their lifeblood.
Yeah. See, I don't have a dog in that race.
Yeah.
I just, you see like articles or whatever, and I'm like, I mean, if it's happening all the time, like, I get it. I could get how someone's upset because, but then it also comes down to what you broke down and said, it's just a matter of definition, how you define the parameters of the sport and who's competing in it. Yeah. So, like, I already had, like, just from this conversation, just this last part or whatever, like, to me it was much more simpler in my head, but then you start breaking it down and I'm like, I don't even know what the hell their stipulations for testosterone are, because I'm like, what the fuck?
I mean, like, and other sports, like
how do you say someone has too much testosterone? That's something I'm really curious about that, so I'll have to look that up too.
And that can actually be kind of something we on the next when I come back, we can definitely, like, kind of center it around that, and I'll actually bring facts and research.
Yeah. So that will give us something
proper.
Yeah, we'll do some prep. Mm-hmm. We'll do some prep for it, and like, I'll write some of my thoughts down too, and because it's much easier if I sit down and try to write down, I can just read it off. It's better than me trying to piece shit together in my head.
And like, I can have a much better discussion if, like, we're centering around that one topic, because this was such a catch-all thing. I didn't really bother prepping. I didn't want to have, like, a whole pamphlet on
Yeah.
the trans sports issues, and then we just never broach the subject because we focus on so many other things. But if we do want to get in that topic, I'd be more than willing to after I go do research and can actually cite my sources instead of just saying, no, trust me.
Yeah. It's everybody.
Yeah.
Hell, I really appreciate you coming on, Amara.
No problem.
It was fucking awesome.
It was a lot of fun.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Hell yeah.
That's a wrap.
Hit the like and subscribe button, guys. You know what to do. Come on. I'm down to 3 likes, and I'm 2 of those likes. Come on, show some support. Show some fucking love, man. I'll catch y'all next time.